Well, could he be out by Christmas? Fingers crossed. Let's begin. Now, of course, I don't know about you, but it does seem, doesn't it, that Labour has been doing its very best to pee us all off. I mean, first of all, they cancelled the winter fuel allowance, or appeared to cancel it, for potentially thousands of OAPs out there in the run-up to winter. Secondly, seeming to go full woke policies ahead. And thirdly, basically calling everyone far right, even if they dared to join a protest, even without, of course, doing any damage at all. Not to mention, of course, seeming to want more controls over free speech or what everyone can and cannot say. I mean, let's face it, he's starting to make George Orwell's 1984 look like a reality documentary, eh? And now it seems that, unfortunately for Keir, he's got some bad news. So just what is it then? What's going on? Well, according to this article, it says that the Labour poll lead collapses after 40 days in office, with Reform now in second place. And of course, because of that, Reform UK MPs have reacted with delight after two polls in the last 24 hours showed them picking up steam. Well, it's not surprising at all, is it? That does make me wonder if in the next election, which of course is 2029, if they will then be either the first or second party. And let's face it, after hearing today that at least 5,000 illegal boat people have come over here from the safe country of France since Keir Starmer took over as Prime Minister, it hasn't done him much favours at all, has it? Remember, he also wants to get closer to our ex, the EU. Well, let's face it, as a country as a whole, whether you like it or not, Remainers, we give them the virtual middle finger some time ago. And the world is much more bigger than the EU. I'm sorry, but it is. It does make me question, how long can Labour actually stay in power if indeed they'll make the 2029 election before something like either a no confidence vote to Keir Starmer himself or a challenge to the government takes place. But anyway, a new poll out this morning from We Think Polling shows Reform is surging up a whopping 5 points in the past month, overtaking the Tories for the first time since the election. Meanwhile, after 40 days in office, Labour has boom, plummeted down 6 points to just 33%, which is just 12 points ahead of Reform UK. And remember, Keir, Nigel is behind you and he is coming. Sounds a bit wrong, doesn't it? Anyway, the Tories, who remain leaderless in the midst of an election to replace Rishi Sunak, remain solid on just 20% support. And it has come out today as well that they are thinking, because they originally go on for on November leadership contest from what I remember hearing, but they are, according to this article, saying that they're considering speeding up the leadership contest to allow the new boss to respond to the budget, which if anything can only be a good move, because let's face it, no one really listens to Rishi anymore, do they? They just think of him presumably as someone who just lost the last election, just won't go away at the moment. However, with a new leader in force to challenge the budget, with, let's face it, presumably quite a lot of mistakes that Labour or tax rises or whatever that Labour are going to come out with, can only be taking gold in the hands of the Tories, and possibly hints that we told you so, eh? The poll, it says, followed another swing from Labour to Reform yesterday, published by BMG Research, which showed Labour down 2 points to 33% and Reform up 3 points to 18%. So it just makes you wonder, doesn't it, how quickly Reform will actually be catching up to Labour, and eventually will they only be 1 or 2 points behind. Reform's UK MP Lee Anderson has said that the polls point to, wait for this, buyer's remorse over the election, and delighted in the fact that his party continues to grow. He said, eaten and into the Labour vote now, the People's Army is making advances every week. Common sense policies attract common sense voters, and unfortunately for Labour, that's just something they haven't seemed to have got at all, is it? And responding to this morning's poll showing Reform overtaking the Tories, MP James McMurdoch said, the climb continues. And Robert Lowe MP, Great Yarmouth MP, added, progress. While the party's chairman Zahir Yousaf warned, Reform's momentum continues. We are just getting started. And that does seem to be the case, doesn't it? They do appear, at least at the moment, to be making good solid arguments in the House of Commons, something which might make Labour policies look more stupider as time gets on, well, at least hopefully anyway. Especially as it says here that Reform is gearing up for the summer conference in Birmingham, set to land next month, with Richard Tice promising it will be the best party in town. And who knows, could even be more livelier than Keir Starmer's beer and curry night, eh? But of course, that was, they were working apparently. But anyway, well, you'd think, wouldn't you, that after all this going on, the Conservatives would try and really entice Nigel Farage to come over and put him as leader. However, unfortunately for them, Nigel has given them the virtual middle finger and said no. But also, the Conservatives don't really want Nigel according to this, as all the 6 Tory leadership candidates said they would not allow Mr Farage in their party, with many making personal attacks on the main rival for his comments. I personally would take them with a little pinch of salt. So you don't think it would take too long for the Tories poll to drop more, and then they think, oh Nigel, please help us out. To which Nigel will say, well, you can come over and join Reform any time you like. But Nigel, be careful, because we don't want any bellends in the party. And unfortunately, there has, let's just say, been quite a few in the Conservative Party for quite a while now. And of course, it did slip my mind that at the very beginning, when I was given a brief overview of Sir Keir Starmer's accomplishments, or mess-ups rather, I did forget to say somehow about his hypocrisy with previous protests and also two-tier policing, which unfortunately, even though Keir Starmer says there isn't two-tier policing, there certainly does appear to be so, especially when it has taken, let's face it, 2 years for some eco-idiots to even be charged, when of course, with more recently we've had those rioters get jailed basically the next day, which, you know, don't get me wrong, they shouldn't have been doing that in the first place, and therefore deserve the sentence they got for damaging someone's property. But it does make me wonder, if they can do it for that person, why can't they do it for those eco-idiots? And of course, about 4 years ago with the BLM riots themselves, eh? And if I remember rightly, Keir Starmer wasn't really too vocal about it back then, eh?